everyone, this is PK Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a full review of the series finale of Cobra Kai. Now there will likely be spoilers throughout, not only for this episode but also for all other previous seasons throughout the series, so just beware. But you can check out my thoughts on the previous seasons throughout the show, and I will leave some links within the channel. Now normally when I review programs I would review the entire season as before, but due to the fact that this is indeed the series finale of one of the shows that I've loved so much for over the last couple of years, and also the fact that you will have spoilers rife all over the internet, I wanted to get my thoughts out on just this finale first as soon as possible. And then later on, if I have time, I will do a full review of the last batch of season 6 episodes, and then maybe a full reflection on the entire series itself later on down the line. So then just to quickly recap on the events leading up to the series finale, where we saw the final Senki Tekkai tournament with Johnny integrated back into the Cobra Kai alongside Miguel and Tori against the Iron Dragons. Tori emerges victorious with quite the brutal takedown, and we then had the absolute epic final match between Miguel and Axel, easily one of the best one-on-one fights within the entire series, with Miguel coming out as the victor. We then had the concluding battle between Silver and Kreese on his yacht. Absolutely great to see, but maybe a bit outlandish and slightly ridiculous, as both go out basically on a huge blaze of glory. And as the tournament between Cobra Kai and Iron Dragons is decided as a tie, it's then up to a final contest between the senseis, of course being Johnny Lawrence and Sensei Wolf. So to instantly jump then into my overall feelings of this finale, and for the most part I absolutely loved it. It was a finale that for the overall experience had everything that you could want, especially if you are a fan of the show. There were high moments here of humour, poignancy, action, drama, and yes, an overall feeling of resolution and satisfaction. And we look at what a series finale should do, which is overall embody what the show is, what it's about, and yes, it should always be a big episode, an explosive and spectacular installment, but here we should see some sort of cyclical trajectory, as if we are reaching the end of a journey or coming to the end of the destination. Now there have been so many other great shows throughout the years that sometimes nail the finale. We've had others that simply drop the ball massively. But from all of my concerns about Cobra Kai and whether it had actually outstayed its welcome for a season or two, or indeed the staggered release of the final season, I am absolutely glad to say that Cobra Kai nailed its finale for the most part. And I think the biggest reasons for this was the fact that Johnny Lawrence was the focus, which is exactly how it should be, as this is what has always been the original genesis of the entire series. What would the Karate Kid universe be like seen through the eyes of the protagonist of the first film? And having done that, what would his journey be like towards redemption? Now whilst of course Daniel LaRusso is the hero and the protagonist of the movie franchise, this series has ultimately been Johnny's story. And for all of the standout younger characters and the great recurring villains who have all had great moments throughout the series, we had to see the completion of Johnny's arc, and this finale itself was a reminder of that. And fueled by William Zabka's central performance, Johnny was the absolute heartbeat of this episode. From the opening scene where we see Johnny back at the beginning of the story, full bearded and with his alcohol, talking to his mother's gravestone, such a heartfelt moment, and again setting a tone for the beginning of his journey back. Now I absolutely loved all of the training sequences with Johnny and Daniel, tugging at all of the nostalgic heartstrings, whether it would be from the Karate Kid films, where we see them on the beach practicing all of Miyagi's techniques, absolutely great to see, practicing the crane kick, absolutely hilarious at times, with the iconic and irresistible Joe Ippolito theme, You're the Best, playing in the background. You simply cannot resist it. And of course we had a truckload of Rocky references, where we see the two characters running on the streets or running on the beach, all of the crowds following them, all absolutely great to see. And if you were part of that generation growing up alongside all of these movies, you were just watching these scenes and smiling all the way through. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Now gladly we had the revelation that Miyagi didn't in fact steal or commit the robbery that was hinted out throughout this entire season. It turns out there was actually a shop guard who had stolen the necklace, and Miyagi had struggled to get it back, and that's why he had the numerous injuries. And overall I'm happy that they dealt with this whole Miyagi backstory in a positive note. There's been one negative aspect of this entire season. It has been this whole secret behind Miyagi, his supposed dark past, and it's something I've never liked, and I'm just overall happy that it got resolved swiftly and it was never referenced again. But we then get to the final tournament fight, and admittedly it was very cool seeing Daniel and Chao's Zen all dressed up in Cobra Kai gear, just absolutely cool to see. And the fight itself between Johnny and Sensei Wolf worked very well. Louis Tan looked easily the more powerful and imposing fighter, and seeing Johnny feeling nervous and intimidated and getting battered very easily added a certain tension, even more so than the fights earlier throughout the season that we saw between Robbie or Miguel versus Axel. And the one-on-one fight here was absolutely great. It was intense and compelling, and whilst of course it had a predictable end of seeing Johnny emerge victorious, this was ultimately the right decision, because again we're seeing Johnny coming around to winning the tournament again after losing in the final from the first film, relating once more to that sense of redemption. And you really did get that sense of elation as we saw all of the hero characters celebrating once more, lifting the trophies together, Daniel and Johnny, just really transmitting that sense of fun and positive energy and vibe, and so many other series and films could learn from this example. And following this, we then had the necessary rounding up of all of the characters, where they're heading and what other life are they going to lead. Again, this is something that's really much of a standard requirement within any series finale. We see Johnny and Carmen get their house, having recently got married and also having a baby. We see Hawk and Eugene heading off to college. We see Tori and Robbie get a major endorsement deal to promote karate. Such a satisfying end for two characters who throughout the series have had that constant struggle for direction and purpose. This is a great example of how to give characters that defining end, and it was so great to see them such in a positive light. By giving them this type of ending, it leaves the door open for any potential spin-offs that we may see in the future featuring the younger characters. We see Chao Zen going back to Japan to reunite with Kim Dae-yoon, who herself had her own very important moment in the first episode of these batch of installments, where she took control of her own destiny. Now overall, I still feel it would have been better if Chao Zen had reunited with Kumiko, because I just feel that Kumiko as a character carried much more legacy. We again reference back to those terrific episodes in season 3, which saw Daniel travel back to Okinawa, and of course that's when Chao Zen came back into the fold. And whilst I've liked Kim as a character, I think her relationship was barely in its infancy with Chao Zen. It was really played for casual laughs at best, so I feel we could have done with a much more satisfying resolution for Chao Zen, who for me has been one of the best characters of the entire series. We then had without doubt one of the most emotional sequences in the entire episode, as we see Sam leaving her family at the airport for Okinawa for a student program. And this moment was really quite surprising in how exactly heartbreaking and emotional it was. Despite the fact that Sam was only leaving for a year or so, all of the actors really sold the moment as if they were never seeing Sam again. And you really felt it again, especially if you've been travelling on a journey with these characters throughout these 6 seasons. And when we look at Sam as a character, I just feel that this is a personality that the series just hasn't quite done full justice with. We've had nowhere near the same depth or intensity, I would say, with Tori. But this really felt like a significant departure, and it was overall very pleasing to see Miguel join Sam for a surprising couple of weeks and see them travel off to new adventures. Again, the door has been left open, as with Tori and Robbie, for these characters to come back in some capacity if there are indeed further spin-offs follow. It felt appropriate given that this was of course the original character romance from season 1. We then had a comical scene of seeing Stingray introducing the new recruits to Cobra Kai. He of course was very integral at the end of season 4, being involved in the whole mix-up of Terry Silver's devious plans to set up Kreese to go to prison. We then have an absolutely wonderful montage of both Johnny and Daniel at their respective dojos as Johnny gives his speech, and I loved all the interaction, seeing the Miyagi dojo and the garden back in full swing as all of the students are practicing the secret techniques of Miyagi. Of course, if you know the films, we all know the sand the floor and wax on, wax off, and it was great to see, and I loved the musical interchanges between these moments. And of course, we closed off this episode with the man at the start of this whole journey, Johnny Lawrence, giving his mantra of Cobra Kai philosophy to his latest class of students in the only way that he knows how. A great way to end this episode and to end this overall series with once more the character that started it all. Now, we did get a kind of after credits closing out moment where we saw Daniel and Johnny at a restaurant bantering back and forth as always. We did have a great nostalgic moment where we saw Daniel trying to catch a fly with chopsticks. If you know the films, this is referencing back to the first Karate Kid film and the first scene where we see Daniel and Miyagi together. A great moment, and this was probably one of those scenes that they initially intended to end the episode, but they decided against it and just threw it in there in an end credit scene as something to laugh at, which I think overall worked. Now, there was no particular hint at any spin-off or indeed the upcoming film Karate Kid Legends starring Jackie Chan, which of course will feature the Daniel LaRusso character. I'm still not convinced in that film itself or the story or why exactly it has to involve Daniel. It just seems this is more of a case of Sony Pictures trying to cash in on the great success and legacy of the Cobra Kai series, but we'll see how that movie pans out when it releases. But back to this episode then, and I think all in all, a very satisfactory and very positive season and series finale, full of action and emotion and heart and elation and overall fun, and that's everything that I think a series finale should be, providing those full circle moments, carrying a certain emotional and dramatic weight, and making you have that sense of full resolution and satisfaction as we come to this overall end of this truly great and magnificent reboot of an iconic franchise. So there's my thoughts and feelings when looking back at the series finale of Cobra Kai. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as I mentioned before, if I have time, I will indeed do an overall series review of season 6 and indeed the entire Cobra Kai experiment as a whole and the major impact and success it certainly had in recent times. So look out for all that great content in the future. But if you have any other suggestions regarding any other movies, television series or any issues in the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within this channel, then also let me know in the comments and I'll see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves and I will see you very, very soon.